Welcome, friends. Thank you for joining us on this journey all about Zambia and the beautiful Zambian people. Now, I'm just going to start out when I got back home in 1999. My life went back as it usually did, and I was back in my routine, and everything seemed about the same. But in my heart, I was not the same. I had a heavy heart. I kept thinking about that conversation I'd had with my dear night watchman and how he wanted to go to school and those just dear people over there. And here I was living in heaven compared to where they were living. And, I never thought of myself as wealthy or rich, but because I'm certainly not, but it's all in the perspective of what you're looking at, and I felt pretty wealthy. So, well, not wealthy enough to help. My husband is a school teacher, and I ran a little tiny nursery. We didn't really make any money at the nursery. I just did it because I love to grow plants, and I really wanted to help this cute night watchman go back to school. So, but I wanted to do more than that. So I thought, how can I raise money? How is this going to work? And I just happened to be in a bookstore, and I was looking at the books, and I saw on one of the books it said over 1 million copies sold. And I thought, well, that's it. I could write down my story. I could make a book. And if I could sell 1 million copies, I'd have enough money to help all the people that I wanted to go to school. And I was all excited about the idea, and I came home and I told my husband, and he said, Peggy, you know nothing about writing books. You don't even know how to type. You're the worst speller. It's kind of like, yes, and maybe you kind of can tell as I'm making these little videos that I'm not really good with words, but my heart was in it, and I thought, well, I have a good story to tell. So I wrote my first chapter, and he said that I needed to get an editor, and a friend of mine said, well, I know someone who's an editor, and I took my first work over to the editor, and it came back about a week later, and it was just covered in red. It was just covered in, he said, can I just make a suggestion? Get a computer. Get something that has spell check and grammar check on it. And I didn't even know there was such a thing. So I thought, oh, well, then I don't need an editor because I can get, well, on top of it all, then he gave me a $300 bill. I mean, the bill, like that was what I was supposed to pay for one chapter. And I thought, well, I can't do this. So I was back at typing and trying to write my story. And one day my husband came home from school, and he said, Peggy, I found your editor. And I said, what do you mean you found my editor? He said, there was a man that was hitchhiking at the side of the road, and I picked him up. And guess what? He's an editor. And I think, you picked him up? Why was he hitchhiking if he's an editor? Oh, and the amazing thing is he's British, and he speaks just like your friends from Zambia. And he just had a friend who said, because he didn't have a car, and his friend said, if you can get a ride to my house, I got an old car I can give you. And I'm thinking, and so here's his address. Let's go meet him. So I see his address on a piece of paper, and we drive down to the big Salt Lake City, and there's this kind of west side of town that you don't really want to be in, right next to Pioneer Park. That was where his apartment was. And when we saw the apartment building, my doubts just kept going further and further down. As we climbed up the stairs, because he was at the top of the apartment building, I just said a little prayer in my heart, and I just said, God, could he at least just have a computer and a table? And if he does, I'll go with him. So we knock on the door, and this sweet guy answers, and he starts talking in his British accent, and I look right into his apartment, and I see a computer sitting on a table. And that was the beginning of my relationship with my sweet editor. He had just gone through an awful divorce. He just left everything with his wife. He just moved on. He was starting new, had nothing, no money. He came up, he edited my whole book, and when he saw what I wanted to do with it, because I told him, I'm not going to make any money off of this book. Every dime that is made off of this book is going to go into a fund, and I'm going to start the Zambia Scholarship Fund. And he said, well, Peggy, if you start a charity, you know, most people, when they start a charity, they keep at least 10% for themselves. But, you know, you can keep 50%. You don't have to give it all away. And I thought, no, this is a charity. This is to help other people. I would never keep any of the money. And when he knew that, he, bless his heart, wouldn't let me pay him. So I got the whole book edited. It was amazing. I didn't have to pay for that. And then I needed a cover. So I had a dear friend. I'm going to show you the little book now. Heart to Heart, Worlds Apart. I needed these two little girls. And I wanted that to be the cover because I wanted it, of course, to be Ruth and I. And then I wanted the little girls holding their hands. I just knew in my mind what I wanted for the book. And she said, well, Peggy, I'm the kind of artist that I've got to have a picture in front of me and then I can paint it, but I just can't imagine it. So you got to get a picture. And this is more difficult than you guys think because, okay, myself, I had never met any black people. I've lived in Utah now my whole life. There weren't any in high school. There weren't any in college. I didn't know any black people. I didn't even know where to find black people. So there's one area that was kind of known as, you know, the area that maybe would have some black people, and that's Ogden, Utah. So I drove to Ogden, Utah. I drove to an elementary school, and I went into the school, and it was in between morning and afternoon kindergarten, and the teacher was back at her desk, and I came in all excited and said, I'm doing this book, and I need a cover for the book. I need to get a picture of two little girls. Do you have a little black girl and a little white girl in your class? And she says, whoa, wait a minute. This is the first day of school. I've only met my morning kindergartners. No, I don't have any black kids. And she said, but if you wait a minute, the second session will start. And even before the second session started, two little girls came laughing, giggling through the door. One was this cute little blonde girl, Amber, and one was a darling little black girl from, if you can believe it, Nigeria. She had the African face. She was just so African. And I said, those girls, I need to take pictures of those girls. And she said, well, I don't know. And I said, you know what, I'll talk to their parents, I'll give them books. I'm not making any money off of this book, not a dime. I'm not making any money. She was a little hesitant, but we put the little African chitangi material on little Nigeri, and we dressed her up. She looked so cute. She was all willing to do the pictures, and I got these pictures of these cute girls. Went back to Kristen, and she made my beautiful pictures for the book. And I was all excited, and now I needed a printer. And I found a printing company that would do books. You know, it wasn't just like Staples or something like that. And also this was 20 years ago, so there wasn't really a Staples or those kinds of things. So this printer, it was an American fork, And he had all the equipment to bind the books, anyway, I got a bid I went in, I talked to him about what I'm doing. I said, could you give me a discount because I'm just going to give all my money away? And he said, well, we could do it for this, but let's do 4,000. Let's start with 4,000. And he said, I just want to warn you, it's a lot more difficult to sell books than you think. So let's do 4,000, and maybe in a few years you'll come back and see me. So I got my first 4,000. I was all excited. I started sending them out to friends. I started going around. I went to the airport. I told the man at the Salt Lake City airport that I wasn't going to make any money off of these books, so could I please put the books in the airport? He said, yes, you can put them in the airport. I sent them off to, got into Barnes & Noble. I contacted Mr. Mulatula. He was the ambassador for Zambia in Washington, D.C., and he helped me out immensely. I just got all kinds of people on board, and the enthusiasm was fantastic. People here wanted to help those people. And I sold my first 4,000 copies in about, they came out in, I formed the fund in November. By September, so not quite a year, I went back into the printer and I said, I'm ready to do lots more. This is just taking off and I love it. And I want to do 10,000 copies now. He said, okay, this is what it'll cost for 10,000 copies. And I paid him the money, and I was all excited and totally trusted him. Well, pretty soon, I was phoning and saying, are you ready for me to come pick up my books? Are you ready? I was going to put 10,000 copies in my basement. I knew how many pallets that would be. I was ready. And he wouldn't answer my phone calls. He wouldn't return my phone calls. I didn't know what was going on. So American Fork was in those days, probably about 3 hours from where I lived. So I drove down there. I sat in his office and I just waited. They kept saying, he's not going to be in. I said, oh, it's okay. I'll sleep here if I have to. He's got my 10,000. Well, I think we settled on $2 a book or something. So that would have been $20,000, guys. That was a lot of money to me. So I sat in his office and finally he came in. And he said, I didn't know how to tell you this, but I've gone bankrupt. I don't have any money. I don't even have money for paper. I'm selling all my machines this week. We're done. And I said, oh, wait a minute. What do you mean you're done? I've already paid you. And he goes, I'm sorry. You're just going to have it be a loss. I said, it can't be a loss. I've done this for the Zambians. Too many people are counting on this. I was so angry and scared and upset and I said, look, how much could paper be? You still have your machines. How much could paper be? He said, I have no employees. There's nobody here. It's just me and the machines. I said, how much is paper? He goes, well, Arima paper is going to be your cheapest. I said, I'll MasterCard Arima paper. Let's get Arima paper. I've got friends. I'll bring all my friends in. We'll get these 10,000 books done. And he sat there, thought about it. It's like, okay, I think we could do this. I can get your paper by Monday. He said, you show up Monday with 5 friends. We'll do this. Monday we show up. In the morning, he has one of us printing off the cover. He has another one of us cutting the covers. He has another one of us with the little, they call them the guts, right? And in each little section, there's they bind to the back of the book, and then something glues the back of the book, and then something else presses the glue down, and it went through all these machines, and we were just on an assembly line trying to figure out how to do these books. And it took us 2 days. I stayed overnight in American Fork, and we got 10,000 copies done. He closed his doors, he shut up shop, he was done. But I had my books.
2 days or 2 weeks?
2 days.